What's up, my fellow fiends? It's Nim here, back again with more RPG horror stories. But first, I want to give a big thank you to all my new subscribers. I never thought anyone would watch these, much less subscribe to my channel, so thank you so much, it means a ton. We've been focusing on DMs a lot on this channel, so today we're going to be getting into a problem player. So, let's get into that post. I'm the DM in this story. I've unfortunately been playing a variety of tabletop RPGs and board games with this player for nearly a decade, and that time has been punctuated by periodic hissy fits like the one that sparked me to write this post. We'll call this player Red. Unfortunately, Red is also a friend, though his behavior is honestly calling that into question as well. There have been several incidents over the years, and a gaming group in the city we both used to live in actually openly discusses how they think he's a sociopath. I'm starting to agree. He was notorious among that group for throwing tantrums and tapping out of games if he didn't like the rules, or if his strategy didn't work out exactly the way he wanted. I vividly recall one time when I was playing a game of Android Netrunner with him, and he made a bad move because he forgot a rule. He really has trouble comprehending and remembering rules. He immediately started fussing and refused to play any further. At least in this instance, it wasn't directed at anyone else. Still, the lack of commitment or consideration for other players is a consistent thing with this dude. Sometimes, while playing a game, he'll just mentally check out and stop paying attention to the game, flippantly waving his hand and saying, "Whatever," when the group call on him for his turn. He doesn't seem to have any shame for it and has never shown any remorse or contrition for his childish behavior. And he's notorious for it in our shared social circle of gamers. Well, recently I started running a 5th edition game on Roll20. D&D isn't my favorite game. I prefer Powered by the Apocalypse, but the pandemic and geographical constraints necessitate that we play online, and I feel that a crunchy game like D&D is actually better suited to a virtual tabletop. Also, I really like gothic horror, and I've always wanted to run Curse of Strahd. When I pitch this to everyone, combining a few players from different groups I've played with, everyone is on board, except Red, who says that he doesn't want to play D&D because he doesn't like the system. That's fair enough, I have my own issues with it too. But when we begin discussing the game in a group chat that Red is a part of, he sees that we're starting to have fun and he changes his mind. He wants to play. He comes to session 0 and announces that he's going to play a Blood Hunter. He did not ask me if he could play a third-party class, and this annoys me because I wanted to keep everything core for simplicity's sake. But I want to avoid one of his patented hissy fits, and he'd been on the fence about playing in the first place, so I let it slide. This was a mistake on my part. Fast forward to this past week. He starts asking questions in the group chat about what people think is missing from the party. I ask why, concerned that he's not enjoying playing his current character and wants to roll up a new one. He very casually says, "No, I like my character, but I'm thinking of homebrewing some new abilities to give myself some versatility." I'm not necessarily opposed to this, but I am off-put by the presumption that he can do that without talking to me about it first. So I tell him I'm not hot on the idea of players homebrewing their own abilities. Not because I want the game to be limited, but because as DM, I already have my hands full with the litany of rules that make up the core of the game. It's a lot to handle even without half-baked homebrew ideas thrown into the mix. But I do tell him that he can run whatever he wants by me, and so long as it's full of cool flavor and isn't game-breaking, I will probably allow it. But with the caveat that I reserve the right to renege on the agreement if it proves to be problematic or overpowered in play. Red says that's fair enough, and he'll run some ideas by me later on. A day or two later, he messages me privately with his idea. It's not entirely game-breaking, but it needs some work both thematically and mechanically. For context, he wants to homebrew his own blood curse. All the Blood Hunter blood curses are explicitly about cursing or manipulating other creatures. The homebrew curse he wants to use just gives him a whip made of blood from his wrist, which he can use to disarm, trip, and attack enemies, and if he chooses to amplify the curse, the whip cracks and all creatures within 120 feet, yes, he really wanted the range to be 120 feet, are deafened. There's no time limitation on this power or anything. I actually don't hate the idea of this at all. I think it's pretty cool, but it needs some work thematically, and it definitely needs some limitations. I suggest that to make it more like a curse, something that affects other creatures like all of the blood curses is written, we switch the effects. The deafening crack is the curse, and if you choose to amplify, then you have until the end of your next turn to make an attack with the whip. I'm not married to this, it's just spitballing. Red agrees, at least for that to be how it works in this upcoming session. But, surprise, surprise, Red is not so amicable when it comes time for him to use the ability. As fate would have it, Red's character is first in initiative when the first combat of the session breaks out. He starts talking about how he's going to use this curse. I'm already a little frustrated because I felt we hadn't really worked out the details, and using it first thing is a bit ambitious. So, as he's narrating what his character is doing and declaring that he's going to use his whip against the enemies, I begin to ask clarifying questions to make sure we're on the same page about how it works. Spoiler, we're not. He starts stammering out indignant protestations such as, "It's perfectly valid as a curse because a whip inflicts pain," and I'm calmly trying to just come to an understanding about how this is going to work, especially in light of what we had seemingly agreed upon. This discussion is getting on a bit. Again, this is just the first turn of the first combat. Eventually, he just says, "I'm just not going to do anything." I try suggesting that there are other things he can do if he doesn't want to use the homebrew ability, as we discussed. He refuses to do anything. He just sits at his screen and pouts. I feel it's time to move on. Second round, first turn. Red is up, again. "No, I'm sitting this one out." Okay, great. Now I have a player who is refusing to play. Not because he couldn't homebrew his own ability, but because A, it couldn't be exactly what he wanted, and B, the DM wanted to come to an agreement on how these would work before implementing it. Well, I don't like these sorts of confrontations. They really throw me off my game and make me anxious. So naturally, I'm not having fun anymore. I kind of hand-wave the rest of the fight because it's just not fun having someone act like a petulant child when you're putting so much time and energy into curating a fun experience. After the combat, we have some RP and NPC interaction, but I'm not really feeling that either. When the session ends, I don't linger in the channel to shoot the shit with the other players and whatnot. I'm done. I don't know what to do, or rather, I don't know how to do it. I know I don't want to play with this guy anymore. This is just the latest in a series of petulant, childish temper tantrums that I don't feel like I need to endure anymore. But this is complicated by the mutual friendship of several members of the group. Red is not receptive to criticism or any sort of conversation that could be perceived as an implication that he has done anything wrong. A frank and open discussion would normally fix this, but I know this guy too well, and believe me, a mature resolution to this is out of the question. To be honest, I think the game is just over. Even if this guy had a sudden, unexpected, dramatic change in personality and apologized and promised not to do it going forward, I wouldn't believe it. This type of behavior has gone on for too long. It sucks for the other players who are all pretty chill and easygoing, but there isn't any way for me to neatly and efficiently excise this habitually problematic player from my group without sacrificing the whole game. I'm resolute. I would rather not play tabletop games ever again than play with this player anymore. So the game has to go. So, from here, I'm probably just going to tell the group that we're going to take a break, cause I'm burned out, and then never start up again. Now, I hope I don't have to tell anyone in the audience that you need to get permission from the DM on your character build before you bring it to the table, but this is especially important for a build that includes third-party homebrew content. And the balls on that guy to start making up his own abilities? What the hell, man? This is not okay. I would usually suggest trying to have a mature conversation with someone like that, but the OP even said they didn't believe it would work, and I'm inclined to agree. As unfortunate as it is, some people just aren't going to change. If this red guy is like that in all the interactions he has outside of his games, I would be gone in a heartbeat. You do not need to keep someone like that in your life. It's always sad to see a game end like this, but like the saying goes, no D&D is better than bad D&D. Since the OP is already on Roll20 though, I'd just suggest trying to find another game on there. It can be hit and miss, but there's fewer nasty social entanglements if you find yourself not enjoying the game or the people and you just want to leave. Anyway, I have a big announcement before I go. Thanks to a lovely suggestion by ArtmanXP, I hope I'm saying that right, I'm now taking user-submitted stories. So if you want me to read your story and possibly put it in a video, then please send it to me either by Twitter or by email. I'm leaving links to both in the doobly-doo down below. I hope y'all enjoyed today's story. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye!